Are you struggling to find your voice in front of your twin flame? This is an irritation I have heard for many years from people working with clients all over the world that come to me and say, I don't know what it is. I'm an intelligent person. But when I begin to speak and communicate with my twin flame, I literally lose my voice. I can't talk. I feel a little bit on even the dumb side. I've heard people say that they forget everything, like their mind will not even work. So today here on this episode of Rise with Raise, we're going to talk about communication with your twin flame, and we have Raise back with us that's going to share her insight, having been with her twin flame for 11 years married to him. And so welcome to another episode of Rise with Raise, and welcome back, Raise. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Harmony. Hello, everybody. Welcome. So this is a huge subject with communication. This is something that myself and my twin flame have worked very, very hard on. And I've come against huge blocks within me. What you were just saying, Dr. Harmony, about not being able to get your words out, feeling like you can't communicate. This has been a huge aspect within my relationship. And I've had to navigate and find the tools and tips in order to work through this, as my twin flame has too. We hit a huge communication block within our relationship, and we had to work really hard on how to reach out to each other. This isn't just with myself, that was with my twin flame also. So you talk about not being able to get the words out, not being able to say, or when you are just saying the words, that they're not being heard how you want them to be heard, and that they're being received in the wrong way. Often our throats become so blocked and we get tangled up in too much, don't we? It's a web of entanglement with our communication. Myself and my twin flame, we got a lot of assistance and help with our communication, because it's hard to navigate this journey on your own, and it's hard to find the tools on your own, because we're constantly seeking for help. We're looking for help, but actually, how much do we actually really bring in to have help? I've had mentors come in and actually work on communication, specifically with me and my twin flame, and sit there with us, giving us communication mentoring to help us learn to talk to each other. And we can say, oh, that's the basic thing. It's the most basic thing in the world, being able to communicate. Well, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. And finding these tools, finding the knowledge to actually get your point across so you're heard. These can all come from different areas of trauma that we've suffered within our lives.
A lot of it I find has been fear of vulnerability, fear of being misunderstood. And I've even seen where a lot of people with their twin flame are afraid to express their emotions and feelings because they're afraid they're going to get ghosted again. The biggest fear is like, well, if I tell him how I feel, or, if I tell her how much I really love her, that it's going to push that person away. And what that does is it doesn't allow the person to be or express themselves in their own authenticity. And that's giving and robbing a person of their power when they can't show up and be authentic and express themselves from a place of vulnerability. And so it really triggers a lot of abandonment wounds. And it really goes back to even those childhood wounds of not having been heard, not having been validated, not having been seen, and all of those elements that we have and work through as our childhood wounds, so to speak. But one of the things I want to bring up here about that, and before I do, I just want to make sure that everyone that's joining us, make sure to like, comment, share, let us know that you're here. Make sure if you have questions, let us know, because we're going to answer some questions at the end. Let us know where you're tuning in from. We'd love to be very engaging with you, and so excited to be here with you on this episode of Rise with Raise, where we help you elevate your true self so you can attract your twin flame. And you can learn more about a program that we offer for free, that you can begin to do the perfect inner work and not work so hard at this process of becoming your best self, to elevate yourself and to align with your twin flame, because people have been doing so much work that amount of work on yourself can also create this not good enough or create this cycle. So back to kind of here, though, what we're talking about is communicating with your twin flame. And if you missed in the beginning, one of the things I asked in a question was, have you found it hard to be able to sometimes in the presence of your twin flame, your voice literally shut down and you can't even formulate words? It's like somebody robbed you of even your mindset of being able to put words together. So I have found that, so the interesting thing I want to say about that, about my experience with that, I consider myself to be very educated. I have a doctorate in chiropractic. I've had multiple businesses that I've started in front, well over six-figure into the $1 million of revenue for showing up in leadership of employees and staff. And I will say, back when I first started having staff, I did have trouble communicating my needs to what I needed. Because even then, so it's even with your twin flame, it can be about having trouble to communicate your needs with anyone, period, because you may not even know what those needs are. But on the flip side, there's a lot of times people are afraid of conflict. They're afraid that if they bring up a situation, it's going to create a conflict. And so they create within themselves a creative avoidance to put things under the rug and not effectively view what it is that needs to be expressed. Now, on the flip side of that, what I have seen with working with twin flames all over the world for many years is, and when I worked with even both of the couple together, that one twin flame is speaking and expressing what they want, but they don't feel heard. They don't feel like they're getting what they need back because they're sending out a signal to the other person where the other person feels, no matter what I do, it's not good enough. So, I'm damned if I do and damned if I don't, because this one person's expressing what they want, but they have an expectation attached to what they want that is sending out an energetic signal that says, you're not meeting my needs. And even if you are, or they're trying, they're not meeting them to the level of what you want in an expectation. And because of that expectation, that is setting up this sense of not feeling good enough. And so the other person, no matter what they do for you, if you don't feel good enough, they don't feel good enough. So you're sending a signal out of, I don't feel good enough. The other person automatically feels that energetically. And so whatever they try to do for you or however they try to communicate with you means that they don't feel heard either, and they don't feel like what they're doing for you or to try to honor or, comply with your needs. They don't feel like it matters. So we got one person talking here asking for something. We have another person up here that's on a different frequency, different wavelength, different channel that is hearing something different than what you're saying. And then they're trying to provide for you what it is you want in a different channel. And you're just not on the same channel, speaking the same language is one. There's so many aspects that we're talking about here, but that is one thing, is getting on the same page. And the way you can do that is literally to show up from a place of beginning to express yourself from your heart and letting go of how it's going to affect the other person. Because another thing people do is they try to people please, and they're afraid if they say it one way or another way or the wrong way, again, that they're going to ghost. So I'm going to be quiet for a minute, Raze, and let you kind of piggyback what I just said.
Yeah, Dr. Harmony, touching on all of that, what you were saying. I mean, how many of us get stuck in that looping effect of the communication cycle where, as you said, we're on different frequencies and we're going back over and over the same thing? And this is a huge part of letting go of all the attachments that we have to the outcome. We can hold on so much to wanting something to happen that actually we go into that place of control. And this is where we've really got to go into that place of surrender and step into our heart and really open our heart to understanding that as long as we are being honest, we're opening up about our communication, our feelings, because a lot of us, when we talk, it can trigger emotions. And this is when we can go into that communication problem again, we can trigger all these emotions, and then we can go again into not feeling heard, into all these issues, the abandonment issues, all these traumas that we've had from our childhood that have come up, that echo in our communication. That's, as we said, on a day-to-day basis as well. Now, part of my past, I was a people pleaser. I wanted people. And again, when we say I want, it's all about what I wanted. So it actually wasn't all about what was the highest outcome in this situation. So again, that's letting go of control, of knowing that actually, if you can just speak and you can connect with your heart and you can really home into that part of you, and setting those clear boundaries, which is a huge aspect of communication. Both me and my twin flame, we actually sat down and we wrote down our boundaries. So communicating in different ways is a really good avenue, not just through the spoken word, writing things down so we can see it on paper and we can be very clear about what each other is saying, and going right back to basics with our communication as well, and really trying to learn to listen to each other. As Dr. Harney was saying, you can be on a totally different frequency. So actually, whatever you are saying, you're not really hearing or receiving yourself. So it's really going right back to a place of being in surrender and learning to listen to yourself, learning to listen to your needs, learning to listen to also your twin flames words, because a lot of us, we get those emotional triggers and then we don't hear the words. We're not listening because we're so concerned with how we feel.
Emotionally charged,
Absolutely, yeah. And it becomes a fog. How many of you get stuck in that fog where you just can't see out of it because you are so trapped, and whatever you do and whatever you say, and you become more heated, more emotional because you're trying to get heard, you're getting louder, and you're not actually getting your point across. So
it usually goes into the pointing fingers and at that stage, and a place of just needing to begin to, somebody needs to call truce usually at that point. And it's about being able to, for yourself, back up and look at, okay, where does this exist in me? Why am I being triggered in this aspect? Why do I have a hard time expressing myself? Why is my throat chakra clamping down on me? Now, I just mentioned that I consider myself a very educated person. I should not lose my ability to communicate. Well, one of the things, there's been a couple things I've noticed. That one is, when I was growing up, I basically didn't think my voice mattered, because I could say anything I wanted about my belief system, but it was always wrong because it didn't match my father's or my family's. And because it didn't, it made it like they're right, I'm wrong. And to me, it wasn't about being right or wrong, nor did I have a reason to necessarily try to prove it was right or wrong, because I had no intention of changing their mind. But they, projected onto me that I was wrong. So I just grew up thinking my voice didn't matter. So when it came time to express who I am, share who I am, show up and share my message that was coming out of a box, and knowing that could be a lot of a judgment projecting onto what I had to say, even about my, we get this persecution even for being light workers, and showing up as a light worker is the first time in history that we're not persecuted, but we still are living that way sometimes because we are afraid of what people are going to think, right? Period. And so it's taken me years to go through layers of that, and a lot of throat chakra clearing, to the point where once, I finally found through my employees and my staff, and took effective leadership training for that, and communication skills. I mean, literally took training on all of it. And then it just kept moving into, like, even in my relationships, then into when I got into the twin flame world. You would think I sometimes didn't even know how, because it came down to, I couldn't even ask somebody to get my ring out of a trash dumpster one time. And I don't even know why, because he would love to help me. I just couldn't even say that. I dumped the trash, the ring got caught in there, and it was my swan goddess ring that I originally had made as a custom ring for me. Went in the trash. It wasn't that expensive, but I almost left it in there because I didn't even want to ask for the ring to get out. Because for whatever reason, I could not speak around this person. And it almost made me feel like, in speaking around them, that like I just couldn't find words, so it's in another timeline. In that, it's in another dimension when this happens too, because they are triggering you energetically for you to go through these experiences to remove the energetic constraints that are on literally your throat chakra and all the emotions and the energy attached to it, because you got to remember this is an energy connection, so that's a part of it. So that being said, then I know that I had also worked through that, felt very effective in my communication. And then when I got COVID, I literally lost my voice physically for months. Like I had no voice and it would hurt. And I know at that time, the person I was with, every time I would have some kind of a flare up with him that was triggered based on my expression, my voice box would feel like somebody had just started squeezing it. And it took me a year and a half after COVID in the last 2 years to start to feel better with that not being constricted in my voice. So I haven't had it as much now, but I think every once in a while I still can tell, like when it triggers and flares up. And it was like I would even just like lose my voice if I have to face something once in a while with it. So let us know some tips and tricks that you would recommend for the throat chakra clearing and how that relates to the energy, and then piggyback that with how that relates to your twin flame.
Okay, so self-reflection is huge at this point, what Dr. Harvey was saying, really reflecting on everything. Going within, a huge part of what I had to learn was actually going in and listening to my own internal communication. So actually receiving my messages very clear to me was the first step. I spent a long time exhausting myself, burnt out, and my throat chakra. I would often lose my voice over long periods because it was overused. And I've even had to have cameras down my throat because of the problems that I've had with losing my voice, because I overuse it because it's too much. So I've really had to take a step back and go within and learn to listen to myself, learn to listen and be mindful with how I speak to myself, how I communicate to myself, really start to home in on that self-care, removing all these blockages around your throat. The first step is by listening to you, going within, stop overusing it so much and start internalizing. When we really start internalizing ourselves more with our communication, we can start learning to listen more. Yeah, we really take a step back, because sometimes we talk so much that we don't actually acknowledge what we're saying or the words that we are receiving. So actually going into beautiful meditations and really being mindful about each word and how you speak to yourself. A lot of mine came from personal pain and trauma from my childhood, from previous lifetimes, that was stuck, it was blocked, and it couldn't come out. So I had to go on a journey of going through meditation, of really connecting and learning to be mindful about my words, also setting loving boundaries within my life, of my do's and don'ts, of being very clear, of understanding how when I talk, I get the emotional triggers, but then working on those emotional triggers. Where are these emotions coming from? Why is it being triggered? How can I then work on those triggers? So when we talk, when we listen, feel those words and how they come up and what we're gaining from them. Because when we really go into that place, we're given the awareness, we're given the insight, and we can then work with how we can learn to heal each aspect of ourselves just from being mindful. And it's a very slow daily practice. And we wouldn't want to rush this process. It's forming a new relationship with yourself. It's actually getting to know yourself. A lot of us, we get carried away. And actually, how many of us can sit there and go, I really know what I'm saying to myself. I'm really kind. I'm loving. I'm going through an experience at the moment with somebody very close to me, and the words that he says to himself, this is my son. He talks very down to himself. Yeah. So how many of us actually just do that day to day? How many of us put ourselves down, diminish our self-worth, tell ourselves that we're not good enough? So really home in on those feelings, or when we're feeling not good enough, and let's start changing that. Let's start changing the language. Even if you're not feeling it at this point, we've got to start somewhere. We're going to start with changing the language with how we speak to ourselves. Be kind to ourselves and set those boundaries up. If somebody is being offensive, put those boundaries up, put those boundaries to say no. You're allowed to say no. And actually using small words and being very clear in using those smaller words have a huge impact. We don't need to come in and overcomplicate it with so much when we can take that step back and just be very simple. Yeah. So letting go of the need of perfection is another one. So what we touched on is actually everything doesn't have to be perfect. We've got to let go of that control. And that's going into that place of surrender, because that's been a huge aspect with myself and my twin flame, is going into that place of fully stepping into surrender. And when you do, the healing and the peace that can come in when you step into that, of letting go of the control, needing to perfect everything, needing all of these things, when actually really we just need ourselves to show up for ourselves right now.
Yeah. And I really like what you said, because in summary of that, and I remember going through this before as I was healing all my throat chakra and feeling like I wasn't heard, is if you're not feeling heard, then you also aren't listening to yourself from the highest self, the intuition, the part of you that has not been acknowledged, that has not been seen, that has not been heard, which is your inner child that's speaking to you, wanting the validation from you that no one else can validate you, because it's an inside job, which is why you're wounded, which is why you're triggering, mirroring, and attracting to you the experiences that's going to give you what you need to heal those wounds. So if you're just joining us, make sure to let us know if you have any questions or comments or anything you've experienced with your own ability to have communication in your life with your twin flame. And we're going to be answering some questions here in just a second. But this is another episode of Rise with Rays that we do weekly. And if you've not watched from the beginning, make sure to go back and check it out. We've had some very powerful information that we've delivered here tonight. And you can also check out the free resource that we have for you, is the Perfect Inner Work Challenge, that you can get plugged into, and the link above or below you, depending upon what platform that you're on. So, Race, you want to go ahead and take and just see if we got any comments and suggestions, or
okay. Hi, David. So just this one with Jeremiah. So my daddy there. Yeah, under David. My daddy taught me to communicate openly, to even be okay with folks not agreeing or saying no. If I'm asking for something, Mama was equally about speaking up for yourself, regardless if someone agrees or disagrees. So they allowed me to voice my ideas and not to shut down, and to do it in a way that is loving. So I believe when you don't suffer from expressing who you are, and you're not dealing with your own self-esteem challenges, then your throat chakra is fully open. That is so beautiful, Jeremiah. That is so true. When you've been given that space and you have the worth, and you know your worth is here, your throat chakra, you've been given that right to speak. And what a beautiful gift to have from such loving parents. Beautiful.
Totally. That's nails it on the head. And so, let me just bring this back up for a second. So let's talk about that for a second, Race, based on our own inner child wounds. So opposite of me, I was not given the permission to speak openly of certain things I was, but not about who I was or my beliefs. And because of that, it does set you up for self-esteem challenges, and it does shut you down, basically. So if somebody's like myself, Raise, has went through being shut down as a child and a parent, what would you recommend for somebody that, like myself, that wasn't heard as a child?
So I would definitely recommend seeking guidance, seeking help. I've had a lot of mentoring around my communication, being able to be given the space in order to be heard, in order to speak up, in order to actually have that connection. To me, that was a huge thing to get. So you mirror me, Dr. Harmony. We've had a very similar childhood where we haven't had the opportunity to speak, we haven't had the opportunity to communicate. But again, it's actually being open and knowing that you have so much worth and right to be here, to be heard, but actually going on that journey to seek out that worth. It's understanding how to gain self-worth within your voice, within your right to be here. And that's going right back to the core of it. I mean, there's so many layers that we can take back here where we can work on we go through the layering process of understanding
Mm-hmm.
the low self-worth, the low self-esteem, the expression that can often then go into people pleasing. We become very aloof as well. And this then echoes in every single day
Mm-hmm.
on how we navigate life. So really, to me, it's a daily step of changing things, changing your actions around how you speak to yourself, what your beliefs are, placing those boundaries in place. And this can seem like a huge, overwhelming process to go through. But actually, when you take very small steps in making these changes, in being heard, a part of what I had to go through was changing my experiences in life. So if people were undervaluing me, or I was allowing people to undervalue me, then I had to go and change this.
Change
Yeah.
your own value for you,
Change
right?
your own value. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
speak up and be heard. That actually is in a way of empowering yourself, of saying, this is what I'm worth, this is
Mm-hmm.
who I am. And actually going forward and having those conversations, which can sound huge, but actually breaking it down and keeping it very simple it creates a massive shift within how you can move forward. Now, with myself, this was a journey that took quite a long time. But when somebody made me aware of it, when I had a teacher make me aware of this needed to change around my worth through my communication, nothing was going to hold me back from that point. I knew from that day on that I had to change everything within me in order to grow. And having that awareness is huge, which is what we're bringing. As I said, we have a community on Facebook where you can be seen, you can be heard. We are there showing up for you. Myself, Dr. Harmony, Jeremiah, and come and join in, come and connect with us. And
your twin flame shows up there too to offer
yeah,
divine masculine support. So a lot of people really like that whenever they can connect and even ask questions for Jonathan and your twin flame. So we have, let's see, True Crazy Lion, Scotland. Hello, welcome. So if you're a recent subscriber, well, welcome to the channel. And keen to learn about twin flames and understand better as you progress through the spiritual journey. Nice to see. Okay, nice to meet you. Welcome very much. Happy to have you here, and you will find a plethora of content on this channel here on YouTube. So keep digging in. You'll learn a lot. Oh, thank you for the COVID. Yeah, thank you. I definitely have recovered, but it was quite a journey. And now we have Heidi. Around your parents, the whole family tree. Oh yeah, it's definitely generational. You grew up in your own secret world. That's a good way to put that, because a lot of people do. And I think that's why we tend to isolate sometimes now. And I know that I tend to, like, even whenever I was around people, I would still find myself isolating myself to some degree, even in around people. Let's see. Jeremiah had another really good one here. Let's talk about this one. If anybody's just joining us, make sure to let us know if you have any questions. We want to welcome you. So when you speak the truth in love, then you're able to speak and do what we believe. It was your mama who really helped you stand in the face of other people's criticism. That's a good one. Until you read a spiritual word that put everything in perspective when you read, don't be afraid of the faces of men. which alludes to us not being afraid to speak up under pressure. And that's a really good question or point too, being able to speak up under pressure. And what I want to say about that too, I just want to say this for myself just before we close out here. So like, I've always been like someone that when I finally could communicate, I could finally share what I wanted to say. Then it was like coming out of a box, and I just was very authentic. And you guys, if you follow me on YouTube, let me know, because I've came here, I've shared everything with you, I've communicated things, I'm authentic. I just come here and be open, raw, and real. Even my book, Twin Flame Codebreaker, all my content, I share really openly. And that being said, though, what I'm finding myself going through now is kind of being put back in the box a little bit to get more refined. And so like the way my processing has been is, if I don't have a box and I don't have a time frame and I don't have the rules and I don't have all this stuff that you got to follow to like make something sound the way it's supposed to sound, then I can speak from my heart and show up better having the space in that. But I find, whether in a relationship with a person that doesn't have the patience to hear me out, listen to the whole story, and let me go through the whole entire process to get to what I need to, or even in my writing and working with publishers and just content that I'm doing, of getting more straight to the point, more straightforward. That has been a challenge I've went through in the last couple of years, and even the last several months, to be able to speak clear, more concise, more congruent, more to the point, more on point, and more, like getting to the point and making it full circle, as even delivering content here on YouTube. I have worked on this. If you followed me, you will see how my content's been. You will see like how I've restructured, reframed, and rehoned. So I think it's a lifelong skill to be able to communicate effectively. And it is an inside job. And obviously your twin flame is going to show up to reflect your weaknesses and what you need to learn within. But just keep looking at yourself in that adversity. Keep showing up, keep speaking from your heart, and learn to accept who you are and what you have to say. And then allow yourself the permission to be authentic and to maybe make mistakes, because this is progress, not perfection. And Ray's can tell you, having worked with me behind the scenes and us working on content for the show, all these things in communication, even her and Jonathan doing recordings. So they're going to start doing a weekly show for you guys on YouTube. It's something that you guys are working on still. Even though you're together and can communicate, you're trying to be more effective about your delivery of communication, right?
Yeah, taking it to that next level and keeping it really, really simple, because this is what we need, isn't it? We need simple tools and tangible techniques that work. We're not overcomplicating it, and being able to deliver it in a way that people can connect and understand is huge. So it's a whole new refining our communication on a different level. But it's so good to have this process, to put this in practice, as Dr. Harmony was saying, the work that goes into the content of pulling it apart and then putting it back together in so many different ways.
Totally. Even just showing up here, even for these shows, just know you see us come and we come. And sometimes people my friends are like, how do you do that? You just sit down and just like blah, blah, and like everything just comes through. And I will say we channel a lot. Like you open up, you allow things to come through, but there's still an art and a science to the whole process. And so, and practice, really at the end of the day, it's really practice. And I know a lot of you that's been around, follow me for a long time, can tell the shift in even the sound of my voice, the energy of my voice, the delivery of my voice. And my voice literally changed from that experience of COVID. Whenever I lost my voice has changed multiple times. It literally sounds different. And I literally deliver more from my feminine side now. So going through this whole thing It's been a transformation of my voice to be more impactful, to share more with others, to be more authentic, to speak more my own truth. So we thank you so much for being here with us today. And just see if we got a couple more little comments here with Heidi, especially around your parents, family, tree. Okay, we already saw this one. And let's see. Hi, Rays.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah.
Get into our community. Come and check into our Facebook group.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I was just going to say the same thing.
The
So you
link's
can
in
get
the chat.
plugged into Ray's information. She delivers there a lot of content in video and in just information given. And you can meet her twin flame there. And you'll actually meet him soon coming up on some of the YouTube content. So we're looking so forward to that. Again, we want to thank you. I want to thank Rays for joining us. Rays, thanks for sharing your shine, your love, your passion, your hope with other people to elevate their true self so that they can come into alignment with their twin flames. And make sure to like, comment, share this shine. Make sure to hit that thumbs up button and the notification bell so that you know that every week we come live at 8 p.m. New York time on Sundays. It's our Rise with Rays show. And we look forward to seeing you next week. And until then, may you always face your fears, find freedom, express yourself, and live out loud. And we send you so much love, light, and liberation. Namaste. Until next week.